There's one thing for the audience. I know it's very last second, but those listening who want to give us feedback on the first show and sort of like set the direction for the rest of these, Charles and I were talking before the show, and one of my conundrums is I'm a lazy programmer. So as much as I want to show people how to do things, there are certain things that I hate doing. One of those things I hate doing, collision calculations, setting up the bit masks. As many of you will know, I have a library called SSK. I use it all the time for my own stuff. And there are certain things that I just never do what I call longhand. And so I would propose, people listening can say, no, you can't do that. You got to show us how to do it the first time. I would propose that on this first game, there are a few things that I will use SSK for, but most things will be longhand. One of those things that I will use SSK for is doing the collision setup, because I can do it in SSK in 2 or 3 lines of code, and you will understand what is happening just by reading it. Or I can show you longhand over a half hour to an hour of discussion, and we'll get to the end, and you'll say, Ed, what? Or you may understand. I'm not saying, some people may understand, but I'm just saying, when I was in your shoes the first time, and I'm like, what? I got to do that a couple times on my own before I even grasp it. And in this case, for Corona, 99% of the time, you could just use my library and you'll get by. So yeah. I would propose that we do that.
And it's relevant to this discussion because as we go through the game mechanics, we want to highlight the different concepts that are involved in the development of the game, and at some point you can transition between concepts and really get down in the weeds on things, and sometimes that might leave people a little lost. So we want to make sure that we're addressing the concepts and then being able to provide you with code that you can kind of snap together in order to get a final product. So like I'd say, and there's always a case where you might want to do something the long way because of some edge case that you need to accomplish. But there might be a time when you just say, you know what, I know how to create a button. I only want to do it one way, and I just want to do it in a couple of lines of code, and because I got 6 buttons on the screen, and I don't want to do it, I don't want to do it any longer than that. And so we'll try to preserve the concept discussions, and then when it makes sense, break out the in-depth, long way to do it, if you will. So what's important, though, I think, and maybe this is what you're saying, is that you need to tell us. So if we cover something and at some point you're like, that's great, I understand the concept, but I would like to know a little bit more about how that works, then we need your comments. You need to tell us that you want to discuss that, and then we'll, on a future show, we'll choose an appropriate place to have that conversation.